I don't think most people wake up one day and decide they want porn to become part of their life. It usually happens much more quietly than that. One click, one lonely night, one stressful week, then another. And before long, something that felt like a choice starts feeling like a routine. The strange part is that most people don't notice the change while it's happening. They only notice it when they try to stop. Picture someone deleting every bookmark, uninstalling every app they think is part of the problem, and promising themselves that this time will be different. For a few days, everything feels easy. They're proud of themselves, they think they've finally beaten it. Then, a difficult day arrives. They're tired, maybe they had an argument. Maybe work or school went badly. Maybe they're just lying in bed with nothing to do. Suddenly, the urge feels stronger than it did a week ago. And they wonder, why is this happening again? At first, I thought the answer was simple. Then, something changed. I realized they weren't just fighting a habit. They were returning to something their brain had learned to associate with relief. I think that's the part almost nobody talks about. People often describe porn as if it's only about pleasure. But for many people, it slowly becomes something else. A distraction. A way to avoid stress. A way to escape loneliness. A way to silence uncomfortable thoughts for a little while. The problem is that temporary relief can be incredibly convincing. Not because it solves anything. Because for a few moments, it makes you forget the problem exists. That's a powerful feeling, especially if life already feels overwhelming. But that's not the biggest thing I've noticed. Something even stranger happens. The longer someone depends on one escape, the smaller their world can become. Little by little, ordinary things stop feeling exciting. Reading feels harder. Conversations feel shorter. Even hobbies that once felt meaningful can seem less interesting. There are many reasons this can happen, and it's not unique to porn, but any habit that becomes the default way of escaping discomfort can crowd out other parts of life. The brain starts asking for what's familiar instead of exploring what's fulfilling. Maybe that's why people sometimes say, I don't even know what I enjoy anymore. It's not always because they've lost the ability to enjoy life. Sometimes they've simply spent so long reaching for one shortcut that they haven't given themselves many chances to rediscover everything else. I still catch myself looking for easy escapes. Sometimes it's endlessly scrolling. Sometimes it's opening the same app without even thinking. It reminds me that this isn't only a conversation about porn, it's a conversation about how easily the modern world teaches us to avoid uncomfortable feelings instead of understanding them. Maybe that's the truth nobody tells you. The hardest part isn't resisting one website, it's learning how to sit with boredom, stress, loneliness, silence, because if every uncomfortable emotion automatically sends you looking for an escape, the habit will always find a way back. And maybe that's where the real story begins, not with what you're watching, but with what you're trying so hard not to feel. I remember reading a comment from someone who said, the hardest part isn't quitting, it's dealing with life without it. That sentence stayed with me, because it explains something I couldn't quite put into words. When people stop watching porn, they don't just remove a habit. Sometimes they also remove the thing they've been using to cope with stress, boredom, rejection, or loneliness. The strange part is that those feelings don't disappear. They're still there, only now they're impossible to ignore. That's why the first few days can feel so uncomfortable. Not because something is wrong with you, because you're finally meeting emotions you've been avoiding for a long time. At first, I thought relapse meant someone had gone back to the beginning. Then something changed. I started seeing relapse differently. Sometimes it's less about forgetting why you wanted to quit and more about forgetting what you were feeling before the urge appeared. If every relapse feels random, you'll spend your time fighting surprises. But if you begin noticing the pattern, it becomes easier to understand. Maybe it always happens after staying up too late. Maybe after scrolling for hours. Maybe after a stressful day when you're mentally exhausted. The habit starts to look less like an unpredictable monster and more like a familiar routine your brain has learned. That doesn't make it easy, but it does make it understandable. Something even stranger happens. Many people think the opposite of addiction is discipline. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's connection. Think about the moments when you feel genuinely present. You're laughing with friends, playing a sport, learning something that completely captures your attention. having a conversation that makes you lose track of time, in those moments, the urge often becomes quieter. Not because it has disappeared forever, because your mind has found something real to engage with. It's hard to crave an escape when, even for a little while, you no longer feel the need to escape. I still catch myself reaching for my phone whenever life gets quiet. Sometimes I unlock it without even knowing why. That reminds me that our brains naturally build shortcuts. Repeat something often enough, and eventually it starts feeling automatic. The encouraging part is that the opposite is also true. New patterns can become familiar too. Not overnight, not in one perfect week, but slowly, almost too slowly to notice, until one day you realize you handled a difficult evening differently than you would have 6 months ago. At the beginning of this video, I said that most people don't choose to become trapped. I still believe that. I think they were looking for relief. And relief isn't a strange thing to want. Everyone wants relief from pain, from loneliness, from stress. The problem begins when one shortcut quietly becomes the only road you know. Maybe that's the truth about porn addiction that almost nobody talks about. It's rarely just about the content on the screen. It's about the relationship you have with discomfort, the stories you tell yourself, the habits you've repeated, the emotions you've never learned to face without running from them. Understanding that doesn't magically solve everything, but it changes the question. Instead of asking, "What's wrong with me?" you begin asking, "What has this habit been doing for me that I haven't found somewhere else?" And sometimes, the answer to that question is the first real step toward leaving the cycle behind. Not because you've become a different person overnight, but because, for the first time, you're trying to understand yourself instead of simply fighting yourself.